I'm now being joined by Ibrahim Anoba. He's a fellow at the Center for African Prosperity at the Atlas Network and managing editor at African Liberty. Ibrahim, good to see you and happy Africa Day. Now, the theme for the day this year is food insecurity and malnutrition, which has been amplified by global crises such as climate change, COVID-19, just to mention a few. Now, help us here make sense of this, Ibrahim. What do you think African leaders can do to best tackle these situations?
Thanks for having me, Sulai. I think it's important for us to use this moment to reflect on the numeracy of things that our African Union could be doing well that are not currently going as planned. I mean, one of them, as you highlighted, is the food insecurity and climate change, which are two of the most important things we need to emphasize. But that doesn't mean we should allow the African Union to sort of forget the many aspects that affect security of lives and properties. It's not only about keeping bandits or terrorists from terrorizing people, but it's more so about giving people economic access to secure their own lives and those of their family, right to go out and protest, organize meetings, and not be afraid of any leader from Cameroon to Sudan to Nigeria. Not be afraid of any leader to violate their rights to protest and whatnot. So these are some of the numerous things we also need to emphasize, in addition to the food security you mentioned, Sulaiman.
So, digging deep, how can African leaders unite to ensure the continent lives up to its full capacity as it is endowed with numerous natural resources?
Well, so I mean, the basic thing that the African Union generally sets out to do is to ensure, peace and security and collective economic prosperity. However, you haven't, you can't really argue convincingly that the organization has been able to achieve these goals since its founding in 1963. And it sort of, brings into question that is it time for us to reform the African Union rather than keep asking this group of people to pursue certain goals they've set for themselves. And I think it's the case that there's a room for a lot of reforms. For example, I think one of the key ones will be to think about how the African Union can mitigate or prevent political crisis in countries from degenerating into coups. And as we've seen, sometimes you look at the problem of food insecurity or any other forms of insecurity, they become sort of useless when countries are in chaos. So preventing political chaos I think, is one of the things that we need to emphasize for the African Union. And as you know, Sulai, many of the leaders, steering the African Union today have questionable legacies in their respective countries. I mean, I cannot imagine why the African Union, for instance, say that Cameroon under Paul Biya should be chairing the Peace and Security Council when in fact Cameroon is dealing with horrendous violation of human rights in the southern Ambazonia region. So these are some of the questions we also need to push to these individuals.
And one other sore aspect has to do with the Maputo Protocol, which tells the African countries to set aside at least 10% of its national budget for agriculture. So far, the AU leaders haven't actually met that target. So what's the solution for Africa to free itself from its reliance on the West for its economic growth?
I mean, it's enough. It's not enough, frankly, for the AU to say it wants to encourage or admonish African countries to set aside an aspect of their budget for agriculture. I mean, frankly, this is not 1984 anymore. This is 2020, and there are other aspects of driving national revenue, and it's left for each country to sort of focus on what works best for itself. So I wouldn't really buy into the idea that every country must subside certain part of their budget for agriculture. In some places it can work. In some in other countries it may not be the best outcome. But I think perhaps one of the things we need to do collectively as a continent through the African Union is to ensure that we keep to provisions, constitutional provisions that that are in fact more important than pursuing reforms in agriculture, frankly, because you can only eat or buy food or exchange when it's peaceful outside, when it's peaceful for you to move from Ghana to Nigeria across the border, not being afraid of bandits or some other chaos. So maintaining constitutionalism and ensuring that constitutionalism does not create chaos, political chaos. That of course make it easier for bandits, terrorists to flourish. Ensuring that is in place, I think, will help us solve numerous problems that would otherwise arise if these things were not in place.
Ibrahim Anoba, many thanks for your time.
Thank you.